everyone, this is Pack Rat 556 here, and I wanted to take just a minute to share with you one knife that I actually keep in my collection. I've had this knife for just a short while now. You might recognize it. It's made by Glock, and Glock actually makes two different field knives. One is the model 78, and this particular one is the model 81. And the only difference that I've seen in the two knives is the model 78 does not have this saw back, whereas the model 81, this knife does. And Glock refers to this as a root saw. I like the saw on it. It's got a kind of a cross tooth pattern to it, and it actually is fairly sharp for a saw. However, I'll be honest with you, I've not used this saw. I've not tried to test it out or anything. Basically, I bought this knife for a different purpose, and I'll explain that in just a minute. I want to give you some basic information before I get going on the knife. Basically, specifications are this is a 6.5 inch blade right here, and the total length of the knife is 11 3/4 inches. And I like the weight of the knife because it comes in at under 8 ounces, so it's fairly lightweight for a knife this size. The blade is made out of spring steel, and it actually registers at an HRC on the HRC scale of 55. And another thing I really like is being made by Glock, which has a reputation for excellence in corrosion resistance. This blade has been phosphate coated to provide that. Of course, if you're familiar with Glock pistols, which most of you probably are, they are excellent when it comes to the tenifer finish that protects the pistol. So this knife should have that type of coating as well, or to have that type of protection against corrosion if used in the elements. Another thing about the knife that I really like is similar to the Glock pistols, which have polymer frames. This knife also has polymer handle and polymer sheath, and this is the exact same polymer that you'd be familiar with on your Glock handgun, which is a very rugged and resilient material, as it's been proven. You know, this is my K-bar, which is a knife that I own several of these. This one's actually my indoor knife, hasn't been used a whole lot. But this leather handle, you can already see some wear here just from unbuttoning the sheath. And over time, this has been being out in the elements, this leather handle can start to break down or deteriorate. But this Glock knife, the handle will stay good always. Probably the handle would outlast the blade. So I really like that part of the knife. According to Glock, this knife is made to military specifications and is being used in different military units throughout the world. One of the things that I noticed about the knife when I first purchased it is it reminds me very much of this M7 bayonet, which was designed to go on the US battle rifle, the M16. Notice the profile of the blades. They have very similar shape to them, even down to the tip, which is beveled like the M7 bayonet. Another thing that I noticed too is the sheaths are somewhat similar in design. This is the M8A1 sheath, which goes with that M7 bayonet. This is much lighter. The Glock sheath is definitely lighter by a long shot from that scabbard. Another thing to think about is, what is a bayonet's real purpose? How would you use it, make it practical? It's used for stabbing. You know, the blade on this bayonet, you know, it can cut, but it's not the best. It's really designed to use this tip to make it work, or to do the work. And that's what I think this Glock knife is really best suited to as well, for piercing. And I think really for a practical application, you would use it for self-defense. Another thing you could do is, if this was a knife you were using in a survival situation, it could be create a spear. If you had a pole, you could actually lash this knife to the pole, just like putting a bayonet on a rifle, and that way you could keep an opponent at a distance. Also, you could use it for spearing, such as spearing fish or game. And that's why I've attached a paracord lanyard to this sheath here, so in worst case scenario, I can use this to actually attach. And the grooves on the scabbard actually make this work quite well. So with this paracord, I can actually create that spear in the wild. I really think this is a nice knife, especially for the money. Actually, I bought this one at a gun show not too long ago for $30 cash. And I think that's a great deal for this type of knife, something that you can use. Again, it could be used for a utility knife, but I think it's best suited to combat type applications. And I'll demonstrate for you guys how I would use this knife and how I practice with this knife in just a moment. One last thing I like to address is some people that I've talked to, and also people that I've read reviews from on the internet, complain about the scabbard on this knife. A lot of people think that you have to use two hands to remove the knife from the scabbard. You can see when I insert it in, it locks tight. So the knife is not coming out of the scabbard unless the lock is released. And basically all you have to do is just pull up on the lock. But for me, I do this with 2 fingers. I treat this as a trigger. And once I take my point finger on the trigger, I use my thumb to break the knife loose from the scabbard. So actually I treat it just like I would a thumb break pistol holster. If you're familiar with that, this would actually be a familiar motion for you. So I like that because I can draw this knife very quick from the sheath. And I think that's great for tactical purposes. So I'm going to give you guys a short demonstration of what I practice with this knife. And if you've been looking at this knife, I would definitely recommend it, especially for the money. It can be found online for as little as $25. Plus shipping, of course, but definitely a good knife, especially a backup knife. And if you're like me and you just collect knives, well, this would be a good one to add to your collection. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for that demonstration.